As John McClane would say, now I have a microphone. Ho, ho, ho. We're going to talk about The Broken Soldier, another story in the never-ending tale of my Vampire the Masquerade game. So this should be a slightly shorter video than some of the other ones I've done. Now, we'll see if that actually ends up happening. But this is a story about something that happens to Nathan right about the time he was trying to rescue Lupita. Nathan discovered that he could no longer draw any sustenance from blood. So he would, bite people as vampires do, try and drink their blood, and nothing would happen. It was like drinking high C or something. It was generating no nutritional value of any kind. So obviously this was disturbing to him, because if you can't draw any sustenance from blood, then inevitably you're going to eventually fall into torpor and die. So Nathan was trying to figure out what the problem was. Some people came looking to attempt to help him, which were the Giovanni. Basically, the Giovanni are mafia necromancers, would be kind of the way to describe it. They were very wealthy. They were ghouls. They eventually betrayed and ate their master, Cappadocius, and they became their own clan. They diablerized an antediluvian and turned themselves into a new clan, the Clan Giovanni. And the Giovanni are known for three things, basically. Being Italian.
You stick out like a sore thumb around here.
Me? What about you?
I fit in better than you. At least I'm wearing cowboy boots.
Oh, yeah, you blend.
Being necromancers.
I did kill myself, right? I mean, I did do it.
Well, technically.
So you're just keeping me alive.
Letting you die slower.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, man. I'm so in your debt. Yeah.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm touched.
And being incredibly fucked up and creepy.
May I have the salt?
What do we say?
Now.
In the game, the Giovanni are pretty much isolated out on the East Coast. They haven't really made much move west because in the storyline of the game, the players have specifically rebuffed the attempts by the Giovanni to kind of move into like Vegas and LA in the past, which is different than the official lore. But now the Giovanni show up, telling them that one of the Giovanni they know, this woman named Cordelia, is waiting in the wings and would like to come into the city to have a meeting. It's revealed that the important information that they have to share is that they know about the fact that Nathan is unable to drink.
And that, as much as anything else, led to my drinking problem.
They've heard about his drinking problem, and they know where it originates from, and they're interested in lending a hand in return for being allowed to move into Las Vegas and set up shop there. So, partially because she doesn't want her sheriff to fall into torpor, and also partially because she wants to find out who is fucking with her people in her city, Divya agrees to let them come into Vegas if this information pans out. What the Giovanni know is that there is a Ravnos, Babik the Lion, and Babik has recently built a hotel, and this hotel is an arcane conduit. Like, the whole building is designed as part of this giant arcane circle, and it is channeling the magic necessary to create something called a soul vortex.
Soup taper? What? Let it get a little closer. The Soul Taker!
If you're not familiar with this from Vampire the Masquerade lore, that's because I made it up. And by made it up, I mean I stole it from Ghostbusters. The building is a conduit that creates a giant vacuum cleaner on top of the building that sucks in all the ghosts of everyone who dies in the city in order to put those ghosts into like a giant ghost battery and use it for mischief. And they know where he's located, which is the Ocean View Hotel. Now, some of my players, when I said the Ocean View Hotel, they immediately recognized what that was. Others had no idea. But the Ocean View Hotel is a hotel in the video game Bloodline. It's basically the hotel from The Shining. That game takes place in 2003, and this game right now is taking place in like 1956, I believe it is. So I figured, why not create a backstory for the Ocean View Hotel to explain why was that place so creepy? Why were there so many ghosts there? Why did everybody go crazy? Why were there so many murders? What was wrong with the Ocean View Hotel? What is this? Hotel Hell. Child's severed head found in hotel laundry room? Oh, Jesus Christ. Was it because of all the Native Americans who were murdered under it? Or was it because it was built to be a soul vortex? Not all the player characters are available to go on this mission. So I hand some NPCs to them. You know, I do this a lot. Give the players NPCs so that when you're going to do something and your character wouldn't necessarily be there, you control an NPC. And in this case, I had Lacroix go. And I gave Enzo's player control of Lacroix because it's his sire. Now Lacroix is a much higher level character than any of the players or any of the NPCs that I usually allow them to control. As soon as Enzo looks at his stuff, he's like, oh, I have every dominate power. I'm just going to walk in and start dominating everybody I see. And indeed he does. And as it turns out, the Ravnos put up no fight whatsoever. They basically just get mind-fucked one after another. But that's okay, because there's a specific reason why Lacroix is there. This starts to become clear when they begin interrogating Babik. So he tells them he came here to kill Nathan. And, you know, making the assumption, correctly, that if he tried to rush in and attack Nathan, he would probably lose, because Nathan's a very powerful character. He decided to do something a little trickier. However, the curse has now been lifted. Just shortly before player characters stormed in there to seize control, Babik had deactivated it because he had realized that he had done this in folly. Now, I have to kind of explain Durgasin, Gehenna, and the Ravnos. This is like the very abbreviated version of all of this fucking lore, so keep that in mind. Durgasin is a really ancient Ravnos. She's a soothsayer. She has a bunch of prophecies related to Gehenna. She's also like the tutor of Dracula. She has a bunch of prophecies, like I said, some of which I think are specifically written down, but I made up some of my own. Gehenna, which I think I've mentioned before, but Gehenna basically is the end times in the vampire setting. There's a lot of disagreement among different groups of vampires about whether Gehenna exists at all and what specifically it means. The general expectation is that Gehenna is like when all of the really, really old vampires, when they all wake up from their slumbers. And it's generally assumed that that will be bad. Now this also then connects back to what the Ravnos are. The Ravnos are one of the weirdest clans in Vampire. Originally, they were presented as gypsies. They were the vampires who lived with the Romani, traveled around, and their like flaw as vampires was that they were all compelled to be criminals. You know, so not racist at all. That original version of the Ravnos was not super well received. They then released another book about the Ravnos, like in the revised edition, which tried to completely reimagine the clan as these vampires out of Hindu mythology who, and it's been a long time since I read this book, and it was a confusing book. The gist of it was that there were like all these Hindu demons, and the Ravnos were created to fight these demons. They're supposed to be like these holy warriors, but they sort of failed in that task and abandoned it and fled out of India because their progenitor, the Ravnos antediluvian, was, you know, such an asshole. And they all ran. They're like, okay, get the fuck out. Everybody go, run, leave. And like the reason that the Ravnos are itinerant is that they're always on the run. And they have like this compulsion to keep moving so they can't be potentially tracked down by their antediluvians. I guess I would say it was a valiant effort to take a stupid idea for a vampire clan and try and turn it into something interesting. But it's still stupid. I'm not sure why you needed two clans of vampires who come from the Middle East and are supposed to be the vampire heroes, but who also have some sort of compulsion that drives them to ultimately fail at being heroes. Now, the importance of the Ravnos in this game is that from the very beginning of the game, they have been chasing in some way the players. The very start of the game was the player characters all, they were still humans at this point, in a car fleeing the house of their ancestor Antonio, the Malkavian, after the Ravnos had burst in and burned his entire estate to the ground. and the players were on the run being chased by some of the Ravnos ghouls. What Babik has realized in the process of that is that Nathan suspiciously falls in line with the outline of a prophecy from Durgason about the broken soldier.
I'm half machine. I'm a monster!
The gist of the broken soldier prophecy is that at the end of days, some sort of thing is going to rise. Some people think it's Cain, some people think it's something else. And then there is a broken soldier. A soldier from a far-off land who slew brothers who were not brothers, who was broken but who has now been made whole again, who will strike down this creature and, smote its ruin upon the mountainside, as they say. In researching Nathan, Babik became convinced that Nathan was the broken soldier, and he believes that the creature that rises is not Cain specifically, it is one of the antediluvians. In particular, I think it's pronounced Zapathasura, who is the antediluvian of the clan Ravnos, who, as I mentioned before, not a good dude, and the Ravnos themselves, not huge fans of Zapathasura. They think he's a bit of a dick, and not thrilled about the idea of him coming back. He realizes this, and he's like, oh fuck, I should probably uncurse him real quick. And so he does, but not quick enough to stop the players from rushing in and destroying all of his shit. And also burning down his hotel, which was pretty funny. Half the group was like, yeah, burn this fucking hotel to the ground. And the other half was like, you can't burn that hotel down because it was in the video game. They're like, I haven't played that video game, I don't know what you're talking about. I burned the hotel to the ground.
I reject your reality and I substitute my own.
So the players burn the hotel down. We have a little moment with Lacroix. And this kind of comes back to what I was saying about why Lacroix is here. There are various storytelling techniques, and a lot of them don't really work in tabletop gaming. The actors in the story and the audience in the story are the same people, which creates a lot of weird situations. So sometimes you have to be a little bit creative in terms of how do you do basic storytelling stuff when some of those rules don't really apply to you. And this has to do with the Hitchcock concept of like the bomb under the chair, the idea of how you build tension.
4 people are sitting around a table talking about baseball, whatever you like. 5 minutes of it, very dull. Suddenly, a bomb goes off, blows the people to smithereens. What do the audience have? 10 seconds of shock. Now take the same scene and tell the audience there is a bomb under that table and will go off in 5 minutes. Well, the whole emotion of the audience is totally different because you've given them that information.
You can't tell the audience that there's a bomb under the table without also telling the characters that there's a bomb under the table. So what do? You don't tell the characters, you don't tell the player characters, you tell an NPC, but you tell that NPC while the NPC is being controlled by a player. So Lacroix is here when Babik is saying all of this stuff about Gehenna and all this stuff. He's here, and he's being controlled by Enzo. You tell the players all of this information, and they kind of get it. They're like, okay. But then you say, Enzo, you're playing Lacroix. Lacroix knows about this also, what Lacroix knows. And then you tell Lacroix what he already knows. And in doing that, you are also telling the other players. Lacroix is very familiar with this prophecy because he's been part of a Gehenna cult for centuries. Specifically, to hunt down and find the broken soldier. Lacroix believes, and has believed for many, many years, that the broken soldier is Nicholas Knight. There are others who believe that Dracula is the broken soldier. Then you have Babik here, who has looked at the situation and deduced, no, obviously Nathan is the broken soldier, and Nathan is the one who's going to destroy Zapathasura, which will spare the entire Ravnos clan from being exterminated by its evil progenitor. One of the things that I like about World of Darkness is how they keep everything vague. They keep the prophecies vague. They keep opinions vague. Even when you go and you look at stuff like the fact that, there is the whole backstory of like where vampires come from with Cain and all that. But then you also have the Libon, who have a completely different story. And then you also have the Bali, or the Ravnos, who also seem to have their own kind of origin stories that don't necessarily fit with what the other vampires say. So it could be anything. And I like that. I think that's very interesting. This allows me to tell this little story, which is just a little story about a hotel and a curse, but it also allows me to lay the groundwork for things going forward, which is something that you always want to put in the time to do. This lays the groundwork for the Giovanni coming into Vegas. It lays the groundwork for more backstory to be revealed about Divya and Lacroix. It lays the groundwork for what Lacroix is doing, what his ultimate goals are, because eventually the plan is that Lacroix is going to leave the city. One of the reasons why I want Lacroix to leave the city is so that I can eventually use him as an avenue to bring Cassandra back into the city. Because, keep in mind at this point, this is taking place in the 50s. Cassandra's been exiled from the city for like 2 entire decades of the game now. But eventually, Cassandra is one of the main characters in the story, and I do want to be able to bring her back in. You do that with Lacroix, because he's one of the few people who has the potential ability to kind of, execute an end run on Divya and put someone back into play that she has taken out of play. I'm just trying to put down, the potential for eventually there's something I want to do with this, unless the players decide to burn it down. Anyway, thanks for watching, and goodbye.